Hey, welcome back in. Janice, I haven't done a recent survey yet, but I understand football is quite important to a lot of people in the state. And sometimes it can divide us even in our relationships if we're not careful.
That's right. You've probably had a wedding schedule or a wedding you've been invited to, and you're like, when is that? Is it during a football game? That's kind of the topic today. We're talking with Kurre and Klapow. You know them as Dr. Josh Klapow and Tony Kurre. Good morning.
Yes, if you have a name, image, and likeness at your wedding, you got issues.
Yeah.
That's why you probably need to back it off and prioritize.
You need a collective.
I'll say this. 2001, when I finally professed my love for my wife, and I dated for 6 years, I said, great, and she knew I did sports radio. I was traveling, I was doing things during fall. I said, so spring, right? And she's like, no, fall.
Oh.
And I said, no, spring.
Spring.
And I said, you don't want to make the people coming to our wedding angry, right? Well, sure enough, we got married September 29th. Alabama was playing Arkansas. We had people taking bets while I was on in my backyard getting married.
So you're saying do not get married anytime in the fall if you're marrying a college football fan. That could be either gender, by the way. We'll make that clear.
Let's make this straight.
Yeah.
We're not saying that college football is more important than the love for your wife or your husband. We're not saying that. We're just saying there's 365 days in the year.
Okay.
If you're spending the rest of your life with somebody, it doesn't need to be done in those 3 months. You can wait.
How does he really feel?
Did you see where he just went, though?
Are you okay?
Where you just went was really interesting. So it's one thing about sort of compromising on the wedding date for yourselves, right? Yeah. You know, we shouldn't do it because I want to watch football, etc. But you see where he went? He was talking about friends. He's talking about friends. Okay, if we're going to have a wedding here and we're going to invite these people.
You want good gifts?
Don't upset them.
They're not going to show up, or if they're going to show up.
They're not.
So, I mean, it does become, it feels absurd, but particularly where we live, it is a significant deal. And one of the things that we were talking about before we came on, that's all good, but relationships are all about compromise. So if you're going in saying this is when it's going to, this is what's okay and this is what's not okay, that's fine. But realize that you're asking whoever it is to make a significant compromise, maybe. And with that compromise comes some trade-offs.
And some people do find that very silly, don't they? But those of us who follow football, we're like, well, okay.
Yeah, and we have the schedule, by the way, for anybody planning their weddings. I think there are a couple of weekends where you don't. Maybe you might not. Some of the top games that are happening.
There's a reason why we have more marriages on bye weeks than we have at any other week during the fall time.
You've done the research.
What is true?
Worst days to get married.
Those are the worst days to get married, period.
Dr. Klapow, though, what does this say, though, in the larger picture, that you're entering into a relationship and maybe one person is really, really tied to sports and they're into it and the other's not? How does that work into relationships in terms of the compromises?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if you're going in and saying, and you are adamant in saying, I will not get married during these scheduled football games, that's a strong statement because we are talking about marriage. And if you're looking at the person across from you and saying, I profess my love for you, I want to spend the rest of my life, but I am not willing to compromise on that, I'm not passing judgment on that, but you do have to step back and think about sort of the maturity factor around it. If your significant other's like, that's fine, it doesn't matter to me, I understand that.
Because they can compromise too.
Absolutely, but I do think you do need a little bit of a reality check because you're making a super strong statement about a game. Now, we talked about.
And we're not even talking about practice.
No,
we're talking about the game.
This is the game. This is the game. And one of the things we were talking about is if it's your profession, and I'm not talking about gambling, but if it's your profession, you're in sports TV, sports radio, that's a different story.
Yeah. You're just talking about a fan.
You got it. If you're a fan, and it sends a pretty strong message. I don't care if it doesn't matter to me whether you're going to send that message or not. It's how it's received.
We're the #1 state in hunting, too, and that starts in October. What are you going to do when your hubby wants to go in a tree stand every Friday through Monday, and all of a sudden you're like, you want to get married in November? You know I love to deer hunt. This is our marriage, for God's sakes, Mike. Can you put your deer hunting aside just for I've been deer hunting with my dad for 35 years, and you're telling me I can't sit in my tree stand with my son? Because you want to get married after we dated for 17 years? You can't wait one more weekend?
Is he what's called triggered?
Oh, yeah. This is in addition to football season.
All right, we have to wrap. We got to go hunting for a commercial. Guys, thank you so much.